Welcome to Lockbox, a podcast providing real estate professionals with action items for success. My name is Jeffrey Brogger, and I'm going to be your host. I'm the founder of two real estate marketing and tech companies, STEEZY.Digital and realnurture.io. In this podcast, you'll learn from top 1% real estate and mortgage brokers the exact secrets to their success. Welcome to Lockbox. Welcome to the Lockbox podcast. My name is Jeffrey Brogger, and today I'm here with Hendon. Aaron, thank you for being with me today.
Jeff, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So why don't you tell our listeners who you are and where you're from?
Well, let's see. I am a managing broker of a real estate team with EXP up in Seattle. I actually live on Vashon Island, which is a small island off the coast of Seattle. If I get fancy, I tell people I live on a small island in the Pacific, and it always makes me feel better. But I love it here. I've been here for about 20 years in the Seattle area, Pacific Northwest. I'm originally from New York, so I talk fast. And, my trip goes from art school in New York to Albuquerque, New Mexico, because my fine art degree makes me eligible to work in the food service industry. I don't know if everyone knows that, but I could work as a waiter anywhere. And I did. And I moved to Albuquerque and I started waiting tables. And then the baker in the restaurant I was working at quit. And I thought, I know how to bake bread because I have an art degree. So I started baking bread in the restaurant and then decided I was going to open up a bakery. And this will date me, but this was back when carbs were considered food. I don't know if you're old enough to remember when you could just eat carbs, but we opened a bagel shop and it was great. Wound up selling it and moving to Phoenix for a few years and then to Seattle. And I've been here ever since. And I've been selling real estate since 2013.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what got you into real estate after that journey?
Well, I talked to enough friends and who all thought I'd be really good at it. And I had been fired from a startup. Well, yeah, I was fired from a startup, tech startup. I was a sales rep and they were moving their sales team to New York. And I had already done New York and I'm not going back to New York and it's not going to happen. And it ended like that. And then I was what happened was I picked up a job selling credit repair services. And I started cold calling my real estate friends, thinking I could find credit repair clients through realtors. And every one of them said, well, look, if you're going to do 100 dials a day selling this, you should sell real estate because 100 dials a day, you'll be a rich man. And you've got all the, if you can do 100 dials a day, you should do real estate. And I thought, all right, fine. It took me about a year to figure out that they were right. And I did. I made the jump over to real estate at that point. So.
Awesome. So now 2013, 7-8 years ago. So at this point, you've recently joined EXP. We talked a little bit before the podcast, right? You're at KW and then joined EXP. And so what's your transaction volume, at right now so that I can kind of gauge where you are for the listeners?
God, it's funny because I never measure the volume of the transaction value. I mean, I did 32 sides last year. Okay. That I track my sides. And that was, a record year for me, which was shocking in a pandemic. And I'm on track to beat that this year. I always feel like I should know how much volume that is, like $50 million or what. And I don't. I know how much I took home. I know how much was on my W-9 from EXP. So it was like that, My GCI so the GCI that I took home after my split with my team was 194. And I thought, that's a good year in real estate. I'll take that.
Okay. And at that point, were you with KW?
No, EXP. So I've been with EXP since November of 2019. So got it. Right before the pandemic, it's funny because, one of the big values of EXP or one of the pieces of the puzzle of EXP is that it's virtual. So there's no office. And truthfully, living on an island, I wasn't going to the office anyway. I mean, you literally cannot pay me to go sit in a meeting and hear about other people's listings. I just do not get the value of sitting in a meeting and listening to other brokers talk about the listings they have coming up. I'll find it on the MLS if I have anyone looking. I don't need to sit here for an hour. And so I wasn't going to meetings anyway. But then, November 2019 is 2 or 3 months before no one went to an office again. And people now realize they don't need to go to offices. There's not a big value add to that. So we switched over right before the pandemic.
Yeah. Good timing.
It was great. I couldn't be happier with I wanted to go, you didn't ask, but I wanted to go in 2018. And Christine, my partner, my team leader, didn't. Look, I really love KW and she really loves KW. I think Gary's a genius and I think he's got a great thing. And if you're getting started in real estate and you don't read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, you're an idiot because it's the blueprint. And there's just nothing.
Great book.
I just don't have a bad thing to say about KW. But 3 ways to make money, 1 way to make money, 3 ways to make money. It was like, this is a better deal. EXP is just a better deal. But we really liked our office and we really liked our team leader. I love my team leader, actually. She's a wonderful woman and I really do have nothing but love, and there were a lot of tears when we finally made the move over. But I couldn't come home to my wife and say, look, honey, I'm going to turn down making over 100% commission on my deals. I'm going to turn down an exit strategy so I'm not slinging houses when I'm 75. And I'm going to turn down lower splits because I really like my team leader. What? I couldn't do it. So finally we made the leap, and it was literally everything we wanted it to be. It was so far beyond what I thought, how much more money I was going to make. It was crazy.
It's a powerful story. And when you look at the data and the stories of all the other top brokers that have done it, it becomes a no-brainer. It's just like
it is just a no-brainer. The only thing I run into when I'm talking to people about, coming over is it looks too good to be true, which is, I get it. It really does. It's not sustainable, or it's this or it's that. And I get it. It looks too good to be true. I do get that. It's not, but it looks that way for sure.
Yeah. EXP is not going to make it another year. Yeah. They have 40,000 agents. We could talk for days about that. I'm an EXP agent myself, and most of my top clients over the last 4 years, interestingly, have left KW, Compass, and all the other ones for EXP. And I noticed a trend.
Yeah.
All of these heavy hitter top brokers that are my clients are moving to this model. That's worth a look. And so I ended up joining EXP under one of them. And ironically, even though I was 80% of my clients are residential real estate agents and brokers, and only like 20% are commercial, I saw a lot of potential in commercial. And so when I joined, I ended up joining commercial and, focusing on multifamily and 5 units and up. But the model is the same. Luckily, EXP just launched commercial earlier this year. Mm-hmm. And I'm really, really excited about everything that's ahead. So my initial question was, you went 32 sides last year. You said that was record breaking, and now you're looking at even more this year. Mm-hmm. So what was the actions or like the levers that you pulled to get you from, say, like 10, 15 transactions to mm-hmm. over 20 to breaking 30? What were some of those things?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it was double. I doubled my production. Went from 16 sides, and I've been hovering around between 15 and 24 sides 4 years, it was in that range, and in Seattle, the median price is 700 and something. So, the volume is, I could support a family of 4 on 15 to 20 sides. But the thing, and I was really looking at it because I was like, well, what did I do differently this year? Because it was the middle of the pandemic. So I had the best January quarter I had ever had. And then the pandemic came and I had no business in the April quarter. And so now I'm coming out of the April quarter with no business and thinking, all right, well, what am I, I got a family to feed. This is not going to work. And a couple of things that I started to do made the difference. One is I shifted my mindset. And I know that's sort of ephemeral and it's not quite an action, but there were actions I took to shift my mindset. So one thing is we have a morning huddle every day on our team, 8 a.m. morning huddle. And I started using those to really get myself empowered to, rather than just sitting there listening to someone talk, I was like, all right, this is my opportunity to create my day. And the other thing that I did was, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Landmark Education or Landmark Worldwide. They put on programs called the Landmark Forum. It's very much it's a personal development transformational education program that I've been involved with for 20 plus years. But first thing I did was I started looking at the future that I was living into And the future that I had created, that I hadn't created, that just the default future was worry and upset. And it allowed me to really distinguish that the more worried I got, the less productive I got. And was able to, through, the work that they train you in, is be able to take that future and put it back over there, sit over there, whatever I'm worried about is over there, which left nothing in the future. And I could creating a business I was proud of. And standing in the possibility of a business that I was proud of, I got on those morning huddles and I was creating for myself, what are the actions a proud person takes, right? And I started getting dressed for work, which for me isn't a big deal. It's just a clean black t-shirt, but still, in the middle of the pandemic, I don't know if we're now sort of coming out of it, I guess, but really in the beginning, it was really sort of heavy. So doing that, and then just getting on the phone and doing the lead gen the way it's designed. Our team makes 5 promises every single day of things that we're going to do, and making those promises the things that if these 5 things happen, I know my business will move forward. And putting in the 3 hours of lead gen every day, 3 hours of lead gen, regardless of whether I feel like it or not, or I want to or not, or anything. And this is now June, July, August, just making the calls, following up with people, doing the work. And sure enough, I'd say like magic, but that's sort of like saying gravity is magic. Gravity's not magic. If you drop the pen, it falls. If you make the calls, it works. It's not magic. It's you make the calls. And really, prior to doing any of that, I was just, I don't know about you, but I have a propensity to talk to myself a lot and not be terribly productive. This was the action I took, was just put that aside, make the calls. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I really like that one-liner. If you drop the pin, it falls. If you make the calls, it works. Yeah. And, with that being said, it's so simple, but a lot of times the simplest ideas or actions are the ones that are the most brilliant when you execute them, and you take that consistent execution over a long period of time, they start to compound. Darren Hardy talks about it in the compound effect, pumping the well, right?
Where is that? I just
first it's really hard to pump. Oh yeah, you have the book. At first, it's really hard to pump. Nothing's coming out. And then once the water starts flowing, now it's super easy to keep the water flowing. And if you let your hand off that well pump, though,
it stops.
The water goes all the way back down underneath the ground, and you got to do the process again.
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting thing too, because that for sure has been, you want to know the other thing that shifted for me last year was particularly is the letting go of once the water starts flowing. And I have a practice now of every day talking to my coach, not every day, every week talking to my coach, where the first thing she asks me is, what are you worried about? What are you making yourself crazy about? Because she knows, and I know, that if I'm obsessed with what's going on with me in my head, I'm not going to take the action. So we get all that out of my head. And then I have been a reliable over the course of my life for taking my foot off the gas when things start working. I am the prime example of, if things start working, I take a vacation. I'm like, cool, it's working. Like, I have to continually prove perpetual motion doesn't exist. Like, I have to keep testing it. And I gave up testing it last year. I was like, okay, I refuse to stop pumping this. And like I said, I'm on track to beat last year, because I'm just, this is the other thing that I did. This is interesting, because this has got to be right there in the, if you read that, Darren Hardy, or I just got done with Atomic Habits. And if you're at all engaged in it, I forget who talks about this, but I turned the thermostat up. I had a floor of doing 2 deals a month, and I made the floor 4 deals a month. And I just was like, okay, well, I'm not going to, because doing 2 deals a month.
I'm no longer satisfied.
I'm no longer satisfied with 2 deals a month. 2 deals a month is 24, and I had done 16 the year before. And I've been hovering in that, 15 to 20, because sometimes you're not going to hit your goal. But if it's 2 deals a month and you miss and you only do 1, okay. Yep. You turn the heat up. That's a really important point. You turn the heat up, and it's like, no, I'm at 2 deals this month. That's not acceptable. I got to do 4. And that's made an enormous difference, turning the heat up.
Yep. I have a story about that. So when I was in college, my freshman year, I was paying for it myself. I realized, oh my gosh, freshman year, first semester was way more expensive than I thought it was going to be. And prior to that, I had been working restaurants throughout my life. So just like you, I had restaurant experience. And actually throughout my life, I ended up accruing about 8 years of on and off server, bartender experience. So I totally understand where you're coming from there. And I then was offered the opportunity to sell Cutco, right? To do direct sales with Cutco. And I realized, oh my gosh, I could make $100 an hour or more if I hone in my skills, go on an appointment and close someone, on $1,000 set and make 10%. And then 10%, my commission goes up as I increase in career sales. Whoa, this is a cool concept. And so I got back from freshman year, first semester, dead broke, barely had the money to put into my truck to get home from college. And I was looking at the amount of days that I had for winter break, 30 days. There's not enough shifts to pick up at restaurants to make the amount of money I need to go back and pay for spring semester. So I walked into my Cutco office and said, hey, you guys told me that if I ever needed to make a certain amount of time or a certain amount of money in a certain amount of time, to come to you with that number and you'd help me break it down to the amount of phone calls I needed to make. I need help with that. This is how much money I need before I go back for spring semester. So I had a huge why, and I went and I made the phone calls. I did the work. And throughout that break, I then started to just crush it, in off season. Like summer is the season for Cutco, but because of my energy, I, pulled out all the stops, made all the phone calls, did the thing, and bam, I hit the numbers, right? But here's the interesting part, and this is circling back to the like, are you hungry or are you happy thing. I then went back to college and I got these email invites to the kickoff conference in January. And I was like, what's the kickoff conference? Well, it turns out the time that I was grinding and working super hard, it fell at the same time as a corporate-wide sales competition. And I had placed fourth. I didn't even know. And so I show up at the conference. I go on stage. There's a bunch of reps there from all over. And I'm like, oh, interesting. This is bigger than I thought, right? This is not just this one little satellite office in San Diego that I was working out of. Like there's 800 offices. It was cool to see that. But here's the statement that one of the top managers told me as he shook my hand on stage. He said, are you hungry or are you happy? And at that point, I was thinking, I'm freaking ecstatic, dude. Right. What do you mean? But it took years to sink in, because I then went back to college, took my foot off the pedal. All of a sudden, come May, I'm broke again. Like I had spent all the money. I'd stopped doing the things that got me that level of success. And there I was, hungry again. And so it made me think, when I got to that level of like, okay, my basic needs are met, I became happy, quote unquote. But really the better word is probably content. Like, that's good enough. So nowadays I find ways to turn up the heat.
Yeah. You turn up that thermostat so that it starts to become a problem. It's so weird, It's, the one thing you said, Jeffrey, that I think is really worth underlining and teasing out and making sure that people get it in the right context, because I know this is how you meant it, is you do need a certain mindset to continue to grind, when it's not working. But I think people mistake being inspired for grinding. Like where was I? I just was listening to this. Must have been on the Atomic Habits. I was listening to it. And it must have been a quote from someone about passion, how you don't want to get confused with, I need passion. You didn't need passion to make those calls. You didn't need passion to make those calls. You needed to be dedicated. You needed to be committed. You needed to make the calls. It's inspiration follows perspiration. It's that's a little quote, but it's inspiration follows perspiration. I don't remember where I read that, but that's the way it works. If you wait to get inspired, Pablo Picasso always said, I'm not waiting to get inspired. I go to work.
Yep.
He just shows up, he just draws, and you just showed up and made the calls. Then you got happy. Then you got all the results. And then you're like, yeah, this is great. So I think it's really important. And I know you're all action based, and that's,
it's the way to be.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the action results cycle, because as I then achieved success and started to learn personal development and then teach reps what I was learning, I taught that experience of the action results cycle. Simple 2 steps. You focus on actions, you generate results. You focus on it, right? But if you focus on results, you might create some actions that'll get you there, and then you let your foot off the pedal. So once you identify your key productivity indicators, your leading actions, which in sales capacities is often phone calls, but it could be for a real estate agent, listing appointments, right? Yep. It could be appointments booked. It could be different KPIs that are leading indicators, not your commission, but the actions it takes to get you there, right? And so I broke down that cycle, and then I heard it in so many different other ways through all my personal development, right? The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield, not the art of war, but the war of art. It being an art major, have you ever read that?
No.
Oh, it's a phenomenal book about the creative process, and it talks about doing the work. You don't wait for the passion to come, because passion is an emotion, and motion creates emotion, right? And so you focus on being a pro. You show up every single day. If you're a writer, 9 a.m. strikes, you're writing no matter what.
Totally with you.
And then the genius comes through that, right? The genius, you'll have terrible days, and then boom, stroke of genius. And if you wouldn't have shown up and written that day, it wouldn't have happened.
That's right.
And so the same concept comes back to real estate. And that's why this podcast is so focused on actions. And so, for you, it seems like that action is phone calls. Is that right? Like that's your KPI.
Well, no, we measure on the team, I think 4 things. We measure conversations per week.
Okay.
We measure for the newer agents, open houses. How many did they do? We measure appointments set, professional and client facing, and names added to the database.
Nice.
And those are the ones that if you do your 50 conversations every week, add 10 names to your database, 6 open houses a month, and 3 appointments a week. A year, you'll be making 6 figures.
You'll be the agent you want to be in a year too. If you're a new agent, you're training.
If you're a new agent,
I love that.
Yeah. And it's, if you're doing those numbers and you're not getting the results you want, then it's efficiency. Then it's your scripting, your conversations, what you're saying, how you're saying it, whatever. We can go to work on it, but you can't coach someone's swing if they're not swinging the bat. You can't coach a player not in motion. You got to get them in motion. And that's mostly where, people want to get it right and then act. And that's just not going to happen.
Right.
It's never happened.
Man,
Rafael Nadal practices tennis 7 hours a day. 7 hours a day. The people that are excellent at what they do have mastered the unbelievable, stunningly boring nature of what it is to excel. You just have to go through it. You're just going to be bored. There's just the unbelievable boringness of consistency, is everything. You got to get through that, resisting that boringness. Boringness is a horrible word. There's another word for that. I can't think of what it is. Dullness, monotony. I don't know, but
it's so true. And it is the life of a sales representative. We're the highest paid people in the world, but we have to do the boring, monotonous task of outreach, lead generation, follow up, right? Just doing the thing, following what's in your calendar, doing it, just boom, 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 plugging away. And, that is part of it. And so part of my company's mission with my marketing agency for real estate was to automate some of that, not automate the conversation,
right,
but automate teeing up the conversation, because some of that follow up especially for leads that are generated online and aren't ready yet, they're maybe 9-12 months out. Well, what is happening in that 9 to 12 months to ensure, or at least hedge your bet to the best of your ability, that that person who you had a first contact with 9 months ago isn't going to find another agent 9 months later once they are ready, right? What kind of follow-up are you doing? How are you educating them? And so my goal, and we've been successful and we continue to innovate on that, was to help outsource, or not outsource, but automate some of that follow-up after the lead is generated, because it's so key. And agents already have so much to worry about, focus on follow-up with. I wanted them to focus on the bottom funnel, the people that are ready now, but then keep filling the top and guiding those people through the process to the bottom.
Yeah. So, and even then, then the bottom of the funnel gets bigger and you got to keep expanding. And that's where teams come in and the whole world. Yeah. That's totally the name of the game. It's great.
I'm curious, where do you see the real estate industry going? What are your 5-10 year projections with?
I avoid projections as much as I can. I really do. I think there's is a great Freakonomics. I'm a big fan of Freakonomics Radio. You ever listen to the Freakonomics podcast?
I've heard of it. No.
Fabulous. Just unbelievable. You should check it out. We're going to share books. I want to get the War of Art, but Freakonomics, if you listen to the podcast. Anyway, they do a thing about the ridiculousness of predictions and how bad human beings are at predictions and why we're so bad at predictions and why it matters and why it doesn't matter. At any rate, so with all that said, I don't have a ton of fear about like the automated solutions that are, threatening realtors,
Good.
The Zillow and the Rocket Mortgages and the press button. Yeah. And I think there's a certain number of people that are going to use that, and it may even be the majority of people. Consumers wind up using that. But I think there's always going to be business for people that don't consider themselves, mass consumers, like there are people that want and need the personalized service that it takes to buy the single most expensive thing you're ever going to buy and the most complex transaction you're ever going to participate in for the most emotionally laden time of your life. I think that there's a limit to how much consumer would be willing to have that look like an Uber, ordering an Uber. I get DoorDash and they forget the spoons. This literally just happened. I was traveling with my family. I was telling you before we started that we drove down to Encinitas. And the last night we ordered Indian food from DoorDash and they showed up at the hotel with no napkins, no bowls, no spoons, no silverware at all, which really makes Indian food
difficult to eat.
Uneatable, right? I mean, it's not like we ordered burgers or something, right? And that's DoorDash. That was $100 and that was DoorDash and that was it. So yeah, I'm going to trust my home transaction to a couple of clicks on the internet. I don't get it. I don't get how that's going to pan out well for people. So yeah, I think the bigger problem is the affordability issue and what we're going to do about the gross inequity in people's wages and the gross inequity, what it takes to actually live in this country. I think that's a much bigger concern.
On that point, great points, by the way. And I love the analogy to DoorDash. I think one of the biggest opportunities for increasing home ownership is all of the stupid regulation around self-employed people.
It's insane.
It's so ridiculous.
Especially now.
Today, as a self-employed business owner, yep. I'm less qualified than when I was on a salary making $60K a year from a company.
I hear you. It's crazy.
I'm making more money ever than in my life. Gratefully, I'm blessed to say that. But I literally did not get approved for a refinance in the fall. And I'm now ended up selling that property anyway. But it was part of my decision factor of like, okay, I'm making much more than I did before. It should be not a problem. But because I'm self-employed, all of a sudden, oh, hey, we need 2 years of your business's income. And we need to, but what passed over to you? Are you a W-2 in your business? And then we have to average the income that you took from those 2 years. And it's just like, if you have a W-2 job from a normal company, it's like, oh, then give me your last 2 pay stubs. You could have just gotten hired and gotten fired a month later. So I think that's a huge opportunity where we can empower business owners that are self-employed with high net worth, high income to afford houses that they can afford, or to be qualified, I guess, for the loans for the houses that they can afford.
I don't think there's any coming back from the gig economy. I don't think we're I don't think we're coming back to large corporate, scenarios anymore. So yeah, we do have to do something about that. And it's on one hand, on the other side of that coin, there's the whatever there is to be responsible for from the the days of ninja loans, I don't, the
no income, no job.
Like that was a thing that was this whole thing is partly a response to that. Right. And
the pendulum swung.
Yeah. Right. It's just the rubber band.
It's way over here.
Right back in the, you got to come back a little bit. But I hear you. I think that's a big opportunity. I think you're right.
So let's talk about books. I'm sure you have some really good books. You already mentioned a couple. We've talked about a few in this podcast. So what are 1 to 3 books that have greatly influenced your life or career?
Well, I think number 1 is always Think and Grow Rich. I don't know how you
should be read before you leave high school.
Before you leave, it's just the best book. It's I read it every year, and there's nothing that comes close to Think and Grow Rich if you're going to be someone who's going to generate wealth. It's number 1. And I've yet to meet anyone who's going to argue that with me. It's like, oh no, and it's funny because it's, couldn't have been written in a more different time and more different climate than this, but it's the principles of it are solid, or the most solid foundation. So there's that. But more recently, one of the books I think really made a huge difference for me is a book by a guy named Michael Michalowicz, and it's called Profit First. And have you heard of it? Have you read it? Yeah, just unbelievable. I had a bakery. I started a bakery for 9 years, and it was constantly a struggle to make money at the business. And when I read the book, which was years later, I'm now already a real estate agent, probably 25, 30 years since I had the bakery, but I read the book and I was like, oh my God, where was this information? Why could I not have seen it? And I mean, I know you know this, but for the people watching, it really is. It's about paying. It's not just paying yourself first. It's not just, Og Mondino and pay yourself first and great, but it's the literal how to do that and why to do that and the downside of not doing that. And, I mean, one of the takeaways, and I'll just give this because I know you got real estate agents that watch this, and this has made it such a difference for me because I've gone down the other road and I have proven that this is a stupid thing to do, is every paycheck now, every commission check I take my 12%, which is what I pay for my accountant recommends I pull, is 12%. And I get on the IRS website and I prepay my next year's taxes. So I'm not saving that money in an account. I don't pay quarterlies. I don't have that money. It's not my money. I don't have to think about it. And the sense of freedom and the sense of peace of mind that I have, that I'm not worried about next year's taxes, is unbelievable. And then I don't have to worry about money sitting in my account for the quarter, because again, I am not reliable for leaving that money sitting in a bank account. Right. If that money is sitting there in a bank account, I will borrow it. And which is another word for screwing myself in 8 months. It's just 100% screwing myself. So, but that was the kind of thing I got out of that book. And that has enormously freed me up. So that's a big book. And Think and Grow Rich, Profit First. I just finished Atomic Habits, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was mentioned in a podcast last week as well. So those are great books. Yeah, I mean, that in and of itself those are all phenomenal suggestions. A couple from me that are mandatory, in my opinion, are Slight Edge.
Oh, I don't know it.
Psycho-Cybernetics.
Oh my God, this is great. These are 3. I got to write these down. Hang on. Oh, I don't have my pen.
And The War of Art. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And then the sequel to The War of Art by the same author is Turning Pro.
Turning Pro?
All 4 of those are life changers, game changers, and different reasons, really.
All right, good. You're going to email them to me. I'm not going to write them down, but you're going to, when we do a wrap up, you're going to email me those names and I'll just get on Audible. And because, I mean, we spend so much time in our cars that listening to the books is,
I love audio.
God, and I started listening at 1.25 speed.
Oh, it's game changer as well.
Game changer. I'm like, I can do that. That's unbelievable. It's great.
Yeah.
All right, great.
I'm curious about your referral to new business. What's the percentage of referral to new business?
I'm about 85% referral at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the other 15% is first-time home buyer classes I teach.
Okay, cool. And with the referrals, if you're 85% referrals, I mean, you must have some systems in place to generate more referrals. So, can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, I ruthless with staying in touch with my past clients. And I don't use send out cards because I really had a bad experience with that company, but I use something similar. It was called Banner Season. Now it's called something else. I don't know what it's called now. I suppose I should know because there's a referral thing I could get from it if anyone signs up for it. But I send out cards. I make personalized hard copy, physical snail mail cards every 6 weeks or so. Cost me a couple $100. And, I write some personal stuff about the market and whatever. So they get a card from me. I have text drip campaigns that go out every quarter to those past clients, so that's automated. I think you click send and I wrote enough for like a 3-year campaign or something. And it's every quarter. They just like, hey, who's your favorite realtor? Anyone like that, nothing major. And then I call people at least 2 times a year, phone, just leave them a voicemail if I have to. So it was like that. Then we do events. We obviously last year we stopped doing events, but work, like for example, I'm always looking for like how I can, stay relevant to them. So one thing I'm doing with a great lender that I've done probably 25 deals with over the last 7 years, maybe 30 deals, we're going to buy a whole bunch of wine. And I found a place that does small 2-glass pours in bottles. So we're going to buy a 2-pack or 3-pack of those and send them to all our clients. And we'll do a virtual wine tasting. We have a sommelier on my team. So we're going to do that and invite people. But just, I've rented the movie theater where I live and shown the Super Bowl, right? Like that. We've rented this movie theater and we did the premiere of Straight Outta Compton, and we did the premiere of Incredibles 2, obviously different audiences, but, things like that. And then, I am all over social media. I'm all over Facebook. I'm all over LinkedIn regularly, just both providing some 80-20. LinkedIn is all real estate, not real estate content like, here's my open houses this weekend. I am a big, do not tell me about your open houses. I do not care about your open houses. I don't think anyone cares about your open houses. I cannot believe people still post, here's this listing. Really? So I'm always just creating video content about buying and selling and what it takes to win in this business. I do every Monday. I do Millionaire Monday on LinkedIn, where I'm posting for agents, things about them, how to maximize their value. And then on Fridays, I do first-time home buyer Fridays, because first-time home buyers have a place in my heart. And I do videos about that. And then I'm Facebook 80-20, 80% personal stuff, 20% business stuff. And 3-4 times a day, something, either a stupid meme, something goofy, or some real estate related content, but mostly goofy stuff about my family. I mean, every one of my clients knows that I am, a Met fan, a Seahawks fan, a fan of my Traeger smoker, a fan of whiskey, Black Lives Matter. I'm a big proponent of find your voice, use your voice, be you, be somebody, be you. You are not out. If you're out to be a generic agent, you will wind up in the mix with every other agent in the world. And you don't want that. So that's how I stay in. That's the systems I have. And I have regularly posting stuff like that.
Right. No, that makes total sense. And, I like the high touch multi-platform approach. It's really good. And focusing on different things for different platforms, the 80-20, 80% personal. I think a lot of agents, they become agents and then all of a sudden it's all real estate. And, it's 100% just listing photos, listing this, listing that, just sold. And people get turned off because now it's like a perpetual ad that your social media account becomes. If you look at the biggest influencers in real estate, it is 80% personal. It's them and their family, and it's this and that, and it's them on a podcast, and it's them golfing, and and then it's like, oh, hey, just sold this $3 million listing. And then it's, back to it. It's just like boom, 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 boom.
No one's interested. I mean, it took me a while to get it. It took me a really while to get that. But
people buy into you as a person.
Yeah. They totally do. I mean, that's the other reason why when we left KW was like, my team leader was like, well, what if, the stock prices or this or that? I was like, look, if it doesn't work, I'll come back. I got nothing to lose here. I mean, I got to make some business cards or something, but I got nothing to lose. No one ever hired me because I was a KW agent. No one ever hired someone because of where I hang my license. It's insane. So if I have to move brokerages every year to find something that works, who cares? No one. It's not that big of a hassle. So that was, so they're buying into you. They're buying you.
That's right. 100%. And I want to ask you, is there a question that I should have asked you or anything that you want to elaborate on from earlier?
No, I think that, given the thrust of what we're out to create with agents watching, I think that's the biggest deal is, do the work, smile and dial. You can leave it at that. That is why that's a thing. Smile and dial. When we get new agents on the team, it is always the biggest hurdle to get people over the unbelievable monotony of what it is to succeed in the job. But you just don't get there from anywhere. And it's monotonous for me. I mean, I'm 8 years in and I'm 85% referral and 15% first time outbreakers, but it doesn't do me any good. I still got to get on the phone and talk to those people and do the follow-up and do all the stuff. And there's no avoiding the grind. There just isn't. It's not if you want to end it on something, the promise of EXP is that you don't have to do it forever. There's actually a built-in exit strategy that you don't have to do it forever. You do it for long enough, and then there's stock, and then there's residual, and you can leave and still have income, which is mind-blowing to me because that's the value. Most agents with no exit strategy, and I didn't have one. I was better prepared for the zombie apocalypse than I was for what I was going to do when I'm 70.
Two things with that. Most entrepreneurs don't go into business with an exit strategy in mind. knowing that, I went into business day one with my marketing agency with the intent to have a successful exit. That's a clear exit strategy.
Mhm.
When it comes to real estate, the second thing I want to point out is how many real estate agent retirement parties have you been to?
0.
It's because they don't happen. At least they haven't until now. So that's why I also joined EXP. And if anyone has questions about that from either myself or Aaron, they know how to contact me. But how can they contact you?
Well, the easiest way, I guess, is either on LinkedIn or Facebook, which are my 2 main platforms. And it's just my name, Aaron Hendon, in Seattle. Or you can try me at Christine and Company, which is my team, Christine's team, and my partner, Christine-and-company.com. And I'm sure I'm contactable on that website. Yeah. And those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me. My email is aaron@candco.me, but you can put that in the show notes if people want to get hold of it.
Absolutely. Aaron Hendon, everyone, artist, baker, real estate agent, and really enjoyed having you on the show. So thank you for the insights and the conversation.
A really great conversation. Thanks, man.
You got it. Thank you for listening. If you want to accomplish your real estate goals, then I highly suggest downloading my free Ultimate Real Estate Goal Setting Framework. The link is in the description of the show, and it will help you break down your annual income goal into the amount of phone calls, appointments, or open houses you need in order to achieve that goal. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.